Hello, Lax World Nation. Thanks for tuning in to our first ever live Google Hangout. My name's Christine Zoll, and I'm going to be moderating today. Here with me in our offices, I have Erin Millon. We also have Todd Cavallaro joining us via his computer from his home, actually from the school. And we're going to be talking about college recruiting today, which can be a very daunting process for a lot of parents and athletes. So we thought this would be a good topic, especially this time of year, to address. We're going to focus on covering the basics and how to begin the recruiting process. And for people joining in, you can submit questions. There's a couple different ways to submit questions. You can submit them through a Facebook page, through our Twitter account, or there should be a button if you're watching live to actually submit questions through the Google process here. So hopefully that works for you. We also have two great panel members, as I already mentioned, Erin and Todd. And I want to just tell you a little bit about each of them. Erin has been involved in lacrosse for over 20 years. She was an 11-year veteran for Team USA, winning 2 gold medals. That's pretty impressive. Very exciting. And she coaches at every level. She's been involved with club, rec, college, and high school coaching. She is also the first women's division director at US Lacrosse. So she has a lot of experience, formerly. And she enjoys lacrosse and just wants to help promote the love of the game. And Todd is coming to us live via satellite. And Todd Cavallaro has a very illustrious career as well, currently in his 8th season, is that correct, at Franklin and Marshall?
That's correct.
And was a assistant head coach at University of Pennsylvania for 5 seasons, was part of the 2006 staff that helped take them to their Division I championship games. And then you're a graduate of Johns Hopkins University and won some pretty illustrious titles there as well. You were the Turnbull Reynolds Award winner. And I also have that you won a Sidney Erlanger, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that, Erlanger Award. So, and as well as being a 4-year starter and a 2-year captain. So again, very impressive. You've been a part of a lot of college lacrosse. So I'm sure you have a lot you can add to this topic as well.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for being here. So we want to focus on the basics for parents and athletes who have, been interested in the recruiting process, interested in playing in college, but just really are not sure where to begin. So we thought maybe one of the best questions to start with would be, what exactly does it mean to be committed to lacrosse and to be committed to a college program? So, Erin, why don't you start off with giving us your thoughts on what that actually means?
Well, to verbally commit to a school just sort of indicates that you're a potential player for that school. You like that school. Perhaps that coach likes you as a potential player for that school. It's not a legally binding scenario, however, because at any time with a verbal commitment, the player can decommit or the coach can rescind the offer. It's not until you get towards the official visits and letter of intent that you are fully contracted, so to speak, with attending that school and playing for that program.
And Todd, would you like to weigh in on how you see if you had to explain that commitment definition to a new athlete or parent?
Absolutely. I think it's really important in today's world, certainly with the early recruiting process and the early commitments. It's happened. So you're seeing freshmen, sophomores in high school, certainly juniors that are committed to all kinds of different programs, and everybody's commitment process is a little bit different, but I think Erin hit it right on the head. It's not binding. It's a commitment showing how interested you are into that college or that institution, and how interested the coach is into you as well. It's not a guarantee with admissions at most schools, none that I've been aware of, and all the schools I coach to. It's a commitment to the admissions process. You still have to go through the same process as everybody else, but the school certainly is well aware of you with the admissions process. The coaches give back a pretty good indication that things should look good. You got to continue to do well academically, and if you do so, there's a very good chance that you'll be accepted. So it is a commitment to the admissions process at each school. But I think early when you do verbally commit, it's showing the coach how interested you are in that institution and in the program. And it's on the reverse side of it, it's the coach committing back to the student athlete saying, you're somebody that I want to coach for 4 years. We're going to certainly help you academically, and you're still committed to the admissions process. And when you get in, and hopefully you do get in, we'll have that opportunity to work together for the next 4 years.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's a very important beginning to understand what being recruited actually means. But if you take a step back from that, even I think the very first part of that process is making the decision of, do I want to be recruited? Do I want to get involved in playing in college? And if so, when do I make that decision? And how do I go about getting started? So why don't we just take it in two parts? When is a good time for an athlete to begin to think about, I want to play in college? Should I think about it now? When do you think that is the best time for kids to think about it, or parents?
Right. I think that certainly by your freshman year in high school, you should begin to have that sort of inner voice telling you whether or not you want to see it through and be a collegiate player. And it certainly doesn't hurt to have the beginning process of sort of targeting different schools that academically fit what you're thinking you might want to study, and then certainly seeing if in fact the lacrosse program suits or could suit your playing capabilities and that sort of thing. So certainly beginning the steps with figuring out the area of the country that you want to be in, what type of school you want to go to division-wise, the major you want to study, whether you want a big school or a small school. All of those kinds of questions are things that you can start to wrap your head around and start to fine-tune in probably the fall of your freshman year, and start your lists, and then sort of take it from there and begin to fill out any potential recruit questionnaires that they typically have available on their websites, their athletic websites. And then also trying to, at some point during these early stages, going and visiting the campus and sort of getting a little bit more information firsthand by being there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. One thing I tell parents that I run into is, even if you don't know where you want to go to school, or your child has no idea, but you're in the vicinity of some colleges, it's always a good idea to stop in and just see a college, even if it's not a school they're thinking about, because at least it gives them some perspective. And you never know, it might be something that they are interested in later. So Todd, she kind of gave us a point of like where you start, but would you agree maybe there's a range of time? Maybe you can start in your freshman year, but suppose it's later than that. Suppose you're a sophomore or a junior. Is it too late? I think that's what a lot of people wonder. I found out about it, or I decided I wanted to do it, but is it too late?
Well, in the recruiting process, it certainly is become earlier and earlier, mainly at the Division I level. But it really depends. It depends on when the maturity of the student athlete develops. They could be late bloomers. They might not be sure what sport they want to play in college their freshman year. So maybe their sophomore year they start to identify a little bit better with lacrosse, and maybe they start to excel in lacrosse, and their focus becomes more of playing college lacrosse at that point. I do think, I agree. I think you need to start to really consider it your freshman year of high school in today's recruiting world. As you develop into your sophomore and you're hitting all these different recruiting events, narrowing it down to what schools that fit the mold for you. Certainly academically, I think a big separation too is when you take the SATs. After you finish taking the SATs or the ACTs, and it kind of puts you in a range of what schools that you can possibly get into, and then hopefully that you can use your lacrosse ability to get yourself into a school and come away with a great education. But I do think freshman year, you got to really start to consider it, start to focus, step on campuses like you all mentioned before, and then your sophomore year and junior year, you should start to define it between 5, 6, 7 schools at that point.
Yeah, that's great. I would agree. So let's change it to another topic of when you're starting and you begin on that stepping process. Some people are concerned, if my child doesn't play on a certain club team, it's done. I'm not going to be able to get recruited. There's obviously club teams all over the place, but there's other possible pathways to getting recruited. Can you just comment a little bit about the whole club lacrosse world and how that relates to being recruited?
Well, I think that initially the thought process of the recruiting tournaments really sort of began that whole mindset of, you have to be on the best teams and participate in the best competition at these events. However, I feel as if, as the years continue, many other things start to have a little bit greater importance. Those are clearly going to a potential school that you're interested in participating in any play days or camps or winter clinics or things like that they themselves run. I know many college coaches really enjoy the opportunity and often will reach out to a club coach and say, we liked this girl, or we saw your team, would you please pass this information on about this event that we're doing, this winter clinic, this 3-day thing, this 2-day thing, and that's really what they're looking to try to then do, is have those girls get on their campus and be able to sort of work with them a little bit versus just sort of sitting and watching the top players play on a team or catch just what they're doing at an event like that. So there's an important aspect truly with participating in the recruiting events. It's a great opportunity for the coaches to see you out there participating with teammates that you're comfortable with. But there are so many other factors truly that can help you in that whole process, as I mentioned, the camps and the clinics. So I wouldn't say that it's just that.
So Todd, do you have any comments you'd like to add to that?
I think with the club programs just booming in the last 10 years, certainly in our sport, they're all over the place. 10 years ago there might have been 20 club lacrosse programs, and now you're seeing just thousands of them. And they're, most part, they're done the right way, and they take them to these recruiting events that we all enjoy watching. We love getting them to campus. Some of these individual showcases are great as well. But I think the club coaches really do a great job reaching out to the college coaches and finding out where that young man or young woman fits best, academically and athletically. And high Division I, are they lower Division I, high Division III type of student athlete? And they do a nice job of navigating and help navigating the student athletes through the recruiting process.
So would both of you say that the club coaches are a stronger factor, or are high school coaches still involved in this recruiting process too?
I would say they're both involved. I would say, though, that possibly maybe on the club side, many of those who are directors of programs have a little bit of a lengthier resume or bio or whatever with what they've maybe accomplished in the sport, so they may have some additional credibility as successful players who are now coaching, or conversely, it can be the same thing for high school, but it does seem that college coaches really do like to listen and hear from the club coaches. Not having been a high school coach, I don't know if in fact that would be sort of the same scenario, but I do believe that they enjoy hearing from both, and both obviously have a great amount of influence with a particular player, having the ability to spend the time developing them and working with them.
Right. Did you have anything to add to that, Todd?
I would agree. I think I still continue to talk to a lot of high school coaches. I value their opinion. The hard part with the high school is getting out and watching a game is the same time as our season. Both men's and women's lacrosse seasons are the same as high school seasons. So it's awfully difficult to get out to watch them play during that time. So you do seem to have a little more, in today, in the last 5-7 years, you seem to have a little more contact in the summertime with the club coaches, because that's who that individual that you liked somewhere, that they're playing with that club coach, and they're going to all these different tournaments. So you seem to interact in the last 5-6 years a little bit more with the club coaches, but I know, I haven't talked to a coach yet that doesn't value all of their relationships with the high school coaches and certainly the club coaches.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. I think that the evolution of the club as becoming a strong factor in the recruiting process has happened because of the overlap of seasons, and I think that's a point that a lot of people sometimes overlook. So I think that's a really good point that you just brought up. Okay, we have a question from a viewer. My daughter plays 2 other sports. Does this hurt her in the process? Should she play lacrosse year-round? Why don't you go first this time, Todd? What do you think?
Well, I can tell you from experience, from my last 20 years of coaching, some of the best players that I had the opportunity to coach have been 2- and 3-sport athletes. I played basketball myself. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, but I played basketball, and basketball alone taught me so many different things that helped me become a better athlete for lacrosse. It has in the last, like I said, the last couple of years with club programs, they're trying to play it a little bit more year-round. I would highly encourage every student athlete, even way prior to high school and even in high school, the early years, to focus on a couple different sports. The more sports you play, the better athlete you become. The better athlete you are, the more success you're going to have on the lacrosse field later on in college. So I think it's really important to continue to educate young men and women to continue to play multiple sports and develop your athleticism. And then it'll get to a point when you really start to focus and narrow it down to just lacrosse. Maybe you start to play a lot more the later part of high school and certainly into college. But I can't emphasize enough that I think it's really, really important that the young men and women out there play a lot of different sports and become the best athlete they can be.
Good. How about Erin?
I couldn't agree more, Todd. Just the ability to cross-train, to work on skills that work different aspects of your athleticism and your physical capabilities. It's really, I think what you said just totally can round out that player and make them that much better at things. I know in talking with different college coaches at different times, one of the first questions they would ask me if I'm talking about a certain player is, does she play any other sports? They want to know, is she out there, doing something else, and is she successful at that as well? It's an important piece to a coach understanding that this player does have a greater range of athleticism and abilities. And I know that college coaches also sometimes like to go to watch players play other sports. To players that they're interested in, they're recruiting, they want to see them playing something else and get a feel for them as an athlete doing that other sport and seeing what it is that they're successful at or whatever. It certainly can give them greater insights as to maybe what this player's capabilities could be playing for them. So I agree. If you can continue to play multiple sports, it only betters you athletically.
Right, I would agree, and I would just add, I think there's a couple other benefits to playing multiple sports. You avoid overuse injuries if you're, working on other parts and other, muscle groups. You also avoid mental burnout from just being completely focused on one thing all the time. So I think there's some really great, just personal benefits for that athlete, which I'm sure is what, these college coaches are recognizing. Not only are you getting that wide range of athleticism, but they're also well-trained, not overuse injuries, hopefully. And then, actually enjoying not feeling burnt out. But there are numerous stories of, pro players, college players in lacrosse, and I'm sure other sports too, that were in another sport for a long time and then switched when they were in high school to lacrosse or whatever. I think that's a common age group for, young athletes to try lots of different things when they're in the elementary to middle school years, and then they start to narrow their interest and focus on what they're really most interested in, and then they hone their skills in that regard. So I think that's really important that we touched on that, because I think a lot of people worry if I'm not completely dedicated to this one sport, then maybe that coach is going to think I'm not committed and I'm not, really passionate. And you're right. There definitely needs to be balance in everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So I'm going to throw a question up here that may, be a question you guys like or do not like, but I'm going to ask you each individually, what is the most common question you hear from parents about recruiting or athletes?
Mainly, I guess, just how do I start? What do I do? There, at least on the girls' side, there tends to be this sort of hesitation about, am I good enough? Should I really even consider that I'm a player who could be recruited, or can I play in college? And gosh, it seems so daunting, the whole process, and I've heard stories and so on and so forth. I just don't know where to start. And that's where having a coach who knows you as a player, knows your player development level, and knows your coachability and knows more about you, I think can be really handy. I'm not quite sure how the separate sort of recruiting process organizations work with respect to actually helping guide a player to find the right fit, because that's clearly the most important thing, that they find academically and athletically the right fit for them so that they're comfortable and happy staying there for the next 4 years. But it's the biggest question is always, where do I get started, and how do I, what's the first thing that I need to do? There's so many schools and I don't know where to go.
So Todd, what about you? What is the most common question that you hear from athletes or parents about recruiting?
I would say one of the biggest questions that they always come in and ask is what are we looking for? What are most coaches looking for? Or what exactly are you looking for? And they're not quite asking it in what position or what skill level or what are you lacking from the year before, but just what are you looking for as a coach? And I think for most of us, we want good people from good families. I mean, the less issues that we have off the field, we can do our job of coaching lacrosse and mentoring the student athletes throughout their 4 years. So we want to bring in good people that are from good programs and good family members that are going to be great teammates down the road. Number two is you want to bring in strong academic students. We have academic programs every place I've been, the 5 different colleges that I've been fortunate enough to coach at. We've had academic progress reports, academic study halls, all that good stuff. But again, the less we can do that by bringing in the right student athletes, good people, the right student athletes, the easier our job's going to be, and we can really concentrate on coaching lacrosse and developing them over the next 4 years while they're here. So we get that question quite a bit. What exactly are you looking for? And that's a tough one to answer because they're not asking what positions you need or any of that. They just want to see what type of student athletes do we want to coach? Do we want to have the opportunity to be around for the next 4 years?
Yeah, that's great. Great answers, guys. Okay, so we know we're an athlete. We know we want to get into lacrosse. We have decent grades. Let's just start with step one. What do you think is step one? Make a list of the schools you want to go to. Is that step one? Contact coaches. What do we do first?
I think it's sort of asking yourself those questions, the very broad spectrum questions. What part of the country do you want to be in? Do you want a cold weather school? Do you want a warm weather school? Do you want to get as far away from home as possible, or do you not want to go very far from your parents? Both of those. Just that kind of a general thing. What's the atmosphere that you're looking for at school? Do you want a small liberal arts school, or do you want to go big time, some huge basketball or football school where there's a big school spirit, and that sort of thing. So it's asking those broader questions. The academic, where do I fit academically? Financially, what can my family afford if there isn't a scholarship that's part of the piece? Because sometimes it's not. It's not necessarily something that's going to alleviate the financial obligation because the schools are really expensive. But it's finding out the answers to those and then beginning your research. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and to do it the right way you have to really put in some time and soul search and answer those questions and have family discussions and just not be hesitant to explore and try to find out as much as you can about all the different programs and schools that are out there.
And Todd, what would you say? I'm an athlete, I'm a parent, I'm trying to get in touch with you, the college coach. What should an athlete or parent do? Should it be the athlete or should it be the parent? What's the appropriate way to approach? I know I want to go to your school. I know hopefully I'm in that level of play that will fit your school. But what's the right process to go through now that I know I've identified you as my target school?
Well, with 1,000 of new athletes playing lacrosse every year, there's so many good recruits. There's your top echelon that everybody's going after in the country, and then there's another 2,000-3,000 pretty darn good lacrosse players. And what's going to separate you from everybody else is maybe being a little bit more proactive. I think in my 20 years ago, when in the recruiting process, it was a little bit different. Today, you need to be proactive, and I think that I would rather be contacted by the student athlete. We'll talk with the parents as well, but I think it just shows a lot of maturity on their part by reaching out to a coach saying, "Hey, Coach Cav, I'm going to be at these 3 tournaments. My jersey's number 785. I'll be playing those 3 weekends. Hopefully, your staff will be there to watch me play," and creating dialogue that way. You both hit it right on the head. By visiting schools, I think is the most important thing early on, because you could figure out if you want big schools, small schools, and all that good stuff, and then along with giving yourself a fair evaluation of your talent level. That's the hardest one, I think, is the fair evaluation of your talent level to know what schools are best for you. But as far as contact, I love when they reach out to me and let me know where they're going to be, and then we can watch them play, evaluate them, bring them to campus, and then move forward. We do hear a lot because the recruiting process is earlier and earlier, so when we hear from 9th graders and 10th graders, a lot of time it is their parents, and that's okay too. But I think it really opens my eyes a little bit when a young man emails me and he's in 9th or 10th grade and he's being proactive and he sounds like he's going to be a great fit and he's already starting to develop and be mature and handle things on his own. I think that excites me a little bit as a coach.
Good. Right. So go on the website, get the coach's email, let them know where you're going to be, and then will they expect to hear back from you possibly, or what is that?
They probably do.
Communication.
I'm sure they do expect to hear back. It is awfully tough because, like I said, there's so many playing. I know when I talk to coaches on the road and they're saying, "Man, I was out of the office for 3 hours today at a recruiting event, and I got 75 emails back in the office already that I got to go through." So it is tough to get back. We try. I know every coach in the country tries their hardest to get back to every individual that emails them, but sometimes it gets to be pretty difficult. When we do, anytime we get an email, that automatically goes into our database, and then it's our job, my staff and myself's job, to get out there and watch them play. And then we have a couple different tiers. We have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. That's how we do it. We certainly try to get back to everybody, but we're really reaching hard to our tier 1s that we think are going to be program changers. Our tier 2s are going to be guys that are going to come in and compete to start right away. And tier 3s are late bloomers and guys that we can develop that we think will be fantastic their junior, senior year of college. So once we get that email, we try to get out and see everybody that reached out to us. That doesn't always happen. We try our hardest. It doesn't always happen. We try to watch them, and then we evaluate them. And usually they get a strong communication back from us or a college coach, most schools, if there's some high interest from our end.
Great. So let's go back to academics for a second. Academics, I think I've always told my kids, I'm sure you guys have told your athletes, it opens the doors for you. It's going to make a difference. You can be a great athlete, but if your grades are not there, it's not going to make a difference for colleges. How do you advise athletes or parents when they're talking to you about grades? Where do you look for a trend? Say you've had a bad freshman year, but things are getting better, or do you just look at the overall GPA? Are you looking at SATs? Like, how do you guys look at that?
I think clearly the standardized tests are a critical thing because that's what the schools and the admissions like to base things on. But I am constantly enforcing left and right that you've got to be on your grades. You've got to be focusing on them and making sure everything is staying above board and being excelling, and you also want to continue to participate in things outside of just the sports then as well. So it's really, for me, I'm trying to emphasize to the girls that they need to present themselves as a very well-rounded individual. I think that goes along with what Todd was saying about good families and having good kids and people coming in. Showing that you're involved in other things outside of the athletics, having good grades, showing that you have some leadership qualities and things like that, or other interests that are very, positive role model type things, is important. So it is definitely a point of emphasis that you've got to continue to always work on making sure your grades are great and that nothing slips anywhere the whole time.
So Todd, where would you say like the range of GPA is in a college level athlete? What is okay and what's great?
Well, I think it all depends. There's a lot of good schools out there. There's college programs for everybody. I always, and I say this quite often, but the way the committing to commit the process works. Basically, their 9th grade year, if they're committing, and I'm not knocking this in any way, but if they have a low GPA and they've taken the SATs and they're really, really low, and a great academic institution says, hey, we're pretty sure we can get you in, and you're going to get a great education, that might be a pretty good opportunity. But I would say overall, there's a ton of different wide range of colleges out there, from high-end academics to a little bit in the middle, and then to lower as well. So there's a school for everybody. But I can't stress enough, and you guys keep talking about it too, is just getting it done in the classroom. Coaches only have a certain amount of spots or slots, however they call it, whatever their institution wants them to use, the verbiage, but they only have a certain amount. And when we get a student athlete, the better they do academically is the less real estate I have to use across the way with admissions. And I think that's really, really important. So we tell everybody the better you can do academically, the more doors are going to be open for you, and you could probably attend the college of choice if you get it done in the classroom. You mentioned at the beginning an upward trend. I've had so many young men that have come through, whether I was at UPenn, whether I was at Hopkins, Carolina, or now here at F&M, that their 9th grade year, they were not great academically, to say the least. Their sophomore year, they were okay. And then then all of a sudden they started to say, oh, I want to go to a great academic institution such as school X, Y, and Z. And we didn't know if they'd be able to get it done or not. Their junior year, they showed such an increase in their GPA, and they showed a nice upward trend academically, which was allowed them to get into a great institution. So I can't stress enough that if you're a young man or young woman in high school and you didn't do great your freshman year or maybe part of your sophomore year, it's not the end of the world as long as you can show that upward trend and get it done. Some colleges, you'll still be able to get your foot in the door with a lot of pretty good colleges.
Right. Great. Well, I want to pause for a quick second and remind everybody you can submit questions on Twitter at LaxWorld. So please submit questions there. Also on our Facebook page. We're looking for more questions. We do have another question coming up right here from Jake. How many student athletes actually get scholarships, and how many are out there? So Todd, why don't you start with that?
Well, it depends. Most Division I programs have 12.6 scholarships total. That's divided up over 4 years. It's total on one team. So usually it's a little over 3 scholarships per year. So it's not a whole heck of a lot. There's a lot of merit-based scholarships, which are your academic scholarships, and then there's financial aid need-based scholarships as well. But as far as most programs, most your top Division I schools, I would say at least 85–90% of them have the 12.6 allotted scholarships. So there's not a ton, but they are there for some of the better people to get it done academically and certainly have the athletic ability to garner a scholarship. On the Division III level, we're all financial aid need-based or merit-based scholarships. So we can't give out athletic scholarships at this level, and that's also the same thing for the Ivy League as well in Division I.
And then Division II is actually similar to Division I, right?
That's correct. Division II is the same as Division I, is along the same lines as scholarship.
Okay.
It's also important too how a coach manages doling out their scholarships, and making sure that they can have each of those, however they break them down, available to them during the course of the matriculation of their players. You don't want to give away your full scholarships, boom, 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 and then not be able to support other players later on.
Right. The one thing I would mention there is when I was coaching in some places, and I know this happens a lot in Division I when they offer scholarships, the hard part is not to believe everything you hear. I mean, you're going from one school, Johnny got a full ride to school X, Y, and Z when he really only got a half ride, but now the parents of somebody else that's playing ahead of Johnny is going to that school and saying, well, you offered him a full ride, and you're only offered my son a quarter scholarship. What's the, so there's a lot of hearsay on what's out there scholarship-wise. So be careful, because everybody wants to let everybody know that their son or daughter is getting a scholarship. To what that amount is, I think most of the time only the coach and that family knows. And then from there it gets passed down the line, and somewhere along the line it gets lost. So that causes some controversies, certainly for some of the Division I coaches, because I know they have that discussion all the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd like to shift the focus now to, all right, so we have an athlete, they've got an offer, they've gone to school, they met the coach, the coach liked them, everything's going great, but people are wondering sometimes, maybe this is not going to be a good thing in college. Maybe if I'm playing a sport and trying to do coursework, I'm going to have trouble, and maybe it'd be better for me not to be a college athlete. What are the benefits of being a college athlete? What do you think, if you were trying to quantify it or explain it, what do you see as some of the benefits?
Well, I mean, personally, as a college athlete, I enjoyed being able to instantaneously have a huge support group and friends right away, and being able to come onto a campus. And I actually played field hockey as well at Maryland. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I came in early.
Such an underachiever.
I came in early before school, the fall session had started for training camp, and was incredibly comfortable right away with meeting all of my teammates and getting around campus and learning the lay of the land, and just really felt at home right away because of having that huge source of security with these new friends and teammates. There was always somebody who was there to help me with anything, upperclassmen or whatever, show me the way, or give me bits of information that I might need that I wouldn't know already. So being a student athlete, you have that with your teammates, but then you also have the incredible support of the athletic department, and the fact that you are a student athlete there, and they need and want to see you succeed, so they support you through study halls, and just being able to offer help if there's certain help that you need on different subjects or with classes, or with certain professors, to try to be able to meet your obligations as the athlete, but then also meet your student requirements as well. So I felt as if it was a tremendous benefit.
Todd, what would you add?
I agree 100% with Erin. I mean, the support system that you have once you step on campus, from academically, you have already something in common with 45, 50 other guys, 30, 35 other females, whatever it may be. You have something in common with them, but the support system that you have instantaneously and the friends that you have right off the get-go, I think, is really, really important. But with juggling, I know you mentioned before about juggling the academics with playing a sport. We seem to, in my 20 years, like I mentioned earlier, I coached for 20 years, every single year, our team has done better in the springtime than we did in the fall. And I think we're more rigorous in the springtime, and it's more structure. They know when our practices are. They have less time to study in the springtime because it is so rigorous. But I think the structure's there, so I think there's less procrastinating, and I think there's a lot more focus in the springtime than in the fall for us. And I'm just mentioning men's and women's lacrosse at this point, but we've done better every single year in the springtime as opposed to the fall academically. And I think it's because we are more structured, we're more focused, and so are our individual athletes, because they know it's for keeps in the springtime, and they know that they have to get their academic work done prior to a practice, prior to departing for a game, and you don't quite have that in the fall. You have a little bit more free time, so for what it's worth, we've done a lot better academically when it's been a little bit more rigorous in the springtime. So I think there is value to that as well.
Yeah, and I know I played soccer and road crew in college, and I think one of my additional benefits to it was I stayed in shape. I was, I didn't get in there and get the freshman 15 going. I actually stayed in shape. But the schedule thing, I think you hit it right on the head. When you're busy and you know you're busy, you get it done, and I think that keeps you more focused. So, I've heard story after story of kids doing better when they have so much going on, or they have more of a structure. And I would think as a parent, you feel a little more comfort knowing that your child is going to some structure, because they're leaving your home. You're not going to see them on a day-to-day basis. At least you know there's a coach or somebody that's going to see them regularly that will, let you know if there's something to be concerned about or if something's going on. Sometimes the kids won't always tell you, what you need, maybe you need to hear, even though you're certainly going to check in with them regularly. But I do think there's a lot of benefits to playing in college. Above and beyond, you've got a scholarship, you're playing the sport of your dream, whatever. I think there's still a lot of benefits to being involved in college sports. So I think I've seen lacrosse especially be very well structured, like you both mentioned, looking after grades, watching their structure, making sure that everybody's kind of staying on track with, the big picture, which is ultimately graduating with a good education.
I think the greatest skill that I learned as a student athlete was my time management.
Yeah.
And it was something that that was a specific skill that was taught. You were given sort of the rundown on how to go about making sure you got everything in that needed to get in, and you didn't kill yourself in the process, but everything, was met, and that was just, that's something that, you carry for a lifetime.
Absolutely. Okay, we have another question. Do you need a highlight reel in order to get recruited? So I know that I've seen a lot of highlight reels. I've seen some good ones. I've seen some bad ones. What do you guys think? Do you need a highlight reel in order to get recruited? Is that really going to set you apart? Is it important to spend, I know sometimes hundreds of dollars to get that highlight reel?
I would say this. I think that it is important to have a highlight reel. There's no question about it. I used to tell everybody, send me game tapes. I want to see the whole game. With 75 emails a day, we can only watch highlight reels now anyway. So I'd highly recommend that they send a video when they do reach out to the coach and they say that they're going to be at this showcase, this individual tournament, whatever it may be. They also send a link with a video. Now, like you mentioned before, with that video, it could be like this. It could be a YouTube video. It could be a Google. It doesn't have to be a whole heck of a lot. I know that I've seen some extravagant videos come through my email, and they're great, and that's fun to watch and all that as well. But I only need to see a quick little video that can be sent, almost any kind of a video. I only need to see that student athlete for about 5-10 minutes, and I'll have a good evaluation whether I want to watch him play live at some point. And so I would definitely steer away from the real expensive videos, because I think you just got to get a good 5-10 minute clip, send it however you want. As long as the coach watches it, then I don't think it really matters.
I agree. I think a video is a great supportive tool. There are just times that coaches can't get out there. They're going in so many different directions, and to be able to to click on a link or pull up something and be able to see a girl or a young man in action. And just like Todd said, it doesn't even really have to be that significant of a length of time. Coaches have a tremendous ability to see all of the intangibles that a student athlete has, and they can just, I pride myself sometimes too when I'm running tryouts and doing things like that. You can just see it and sense it from a player very, very quickly, and having a highlight reel that illustrates great athletics and you know, making the right decision and making the right move and doing something specific, you know, is great to have, and it's a great supportive tool and definitely something you want to consider having.
Great. Well, I know we could not possibly cover everything, but is there? Would either of you like to touch on anything we may have missed? You know, in the basic recruiting process, getting started.
I would just want to say that probably the first and foremost thing that a player should think about is trying to understand what the ultimate goal is, and that is to find the right fit for you across the board, the right fit academically, the right fit athletically, the right fit socially as well. And if you can do that, you know, you're going to have some of the best experiences in your entire life, memories that you will keep forever and ever, and will shape you into the adult that you'll be. And I think that as long as you kind of keep that first and foremost and understand that it really should be about what is right for you, and not get caught up in all of the hype that sometimes comes with the whole recruiting process and the different programs, you'll do yourself the best service, and you'll be a great, you know, great person ultimately for having done that.
Thank you. And what about you, Todd?
I would piggyback off that and say just don't let the process eat you up, because it can eat you up. It is certainly a strenuous process that has just really taken off a lot in the last 5-10 years. Just enjoy it. Live in the moment. Do your due diligence by visiting all these schools. Get it done in the classroom so you open more doors for yourself. And like Erin said, find out socially where you want to be, big school, small school. Fairly assess your talent and where you can play. But don't get caught up. Take a deep breath throughout the process and just try to have fun with it. Don't get caught up in the domino effect that, you know, Johnny and Joey and Jill and Susan, they all committed. I got to commit. A domino effect. I got to go somewhere. They're committed. 9th graders, 10th graders. Don't get caught up in all that, and just do what's best for you, but try to enjoy it along the way.
Hard work pays off, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's right. So it's good to learn that lesson now. So I would agree. Both of you have been absolutely fabulous. I think you've really added a lot to it. As I said before, you know, it's impossible to cover every single question related to this topic. But as we enter the summer season, I think it's important to address it and try to put some information out there. I think, you know, probably the most important thing that both of you have mentioned several times is if you have a desire to play, there's probably a place for you. You just need to find the right fit and not give up until you find it. There are so many schools all over the country. There's so many developing programs all over the country. And I think that, you know, if you just talk to people, one of the things that I learned along the way with, you know, just life in general is when you're looking to do something, talk to people who've been there and done it already. Even if you don't necessarily follow their path, they can give you some information and insight that will help you before you face those decisions. And then, you know, it applies to a lot of different things, I think. But you guys have both been really great. I just want to thank both Erin and Todd. Again, I don't know if I ever mentioned this. I'm Christine Zoll. I work here at Lax World. But I want to thank both of you for joining us today. You know, this may be something that we touch on again. We'll see how the viewers feel about it. Please submit follow-up questions. We'll be happy to answer them. We definitely want to hear, if you're interested in more Google Hangouts, what topics you would like to talk about. We don't have to stick on this one topic. There are so many topics surrounding lacrosse that we could discuss. We'd like to see what you guys are interested in talking about and get the conversation going. But, please keep in mind there are many opportunities out there, so don't give up. No matter what age you are, where you are, once you know what you want and you set some goals, start working on them and don't give up till you get where you want to be. This broadcast will also be available later for viewing on YouTube. I think it'll be up as early as tomorrow afternoon, so you guys can share this. The viewers out there, you guys can share it. Anybody who happens across this, you'll be able to see it, this video forever, I guess. We will live forever. So please share it and check it out. Let other people know about it. And then thank you so much for tuning in. Happy laxing out there.
Thanks for having us.
Todd.
Bye, Todd.
Bye. Take care.